It's the Wells Fargo Minnesota Sports Prep Update for Friday, December 6th. I'm Ryan Phelps. And so they meet again, but the big decisions weren't made. We're talking about the Minnesota State High School League Board of Directors and their November meeting yesterday in Brooklyn Center, and how they'll play the 2015 football season is still up in the air. What we do know is the Prep Bowl will be held November 13th and 14th at TCF Bank Stadium at the U of M, which is 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, when the games have been traditionally played. The move stems from a scheduling conflict with the Gophers at TCF Bank Stadium and could result in one of two options. There was talk yesterday of starting practices on August 3rd of that year, allowing teams to have 3 regular season games before Labor Day, as opposed to 1 like we have now. The second would mean playing the first week of games after just 2 weeks of practice in lieu of scrimmages. But conditions must be met before either option could be approved at the board's next meeting on January 23rd. Input would be sought from the league's Sports Medicine Advisory Committee, made up of doctors, chiropractors, and a nurse practitioner, before playing games after 2 weeks of practice on August 22nd. The committee has recommended against similar requests in the past, but the board does have the final decision. And all of this talk just over 1 year of football, because in 2014 there is no scheduling conflict, and in 2016 the new Vikings Stadium will be built and the Prep Bowl will be held there. Also at the meeting, Kevin Merkel of the High School League laid out the pros and cons of a new statewide scheduling plan that would involve groups of teams primarily based on geography and enrollment. The board is expected to vote in January on these scheduling pods, and they could implement the plan as early as 2015.
Your first word probably wasn't something like finance, or savings, or ATM. But whatever that first word was, it opened up a world to you that was built on conversations. It's this exchange of ideas that Wells Fargo puts into practice every day, through listening, guiding, and planning. So when the conversation is about ways to grow your savings or your business, we'll be here to help you find the right answers. Because an open dialogue is what opens doors. Wells Fargo. Together we'll go far. Wells Fargo Bank, N.A.
Give Dad what he really wants for Christmas. The power of DeWalt tools. Your local Hardware Hank carries a wide array of corded and cordless DeWalt tools, including DeWalt's heavy-duty reciprocating saw. The 4-position blade clamp allows for flush cutting and increased versatility, while the lever-action keyless blade clamp allows for quick and easy blade changing. Visit your nearest Hardware Hank today and give Dad the power to get the job done efficiently and reliably with DeWalt's heavy-duty reciprocating saw.
You've got a lot more going for you with Hank, Hardware Hank.
As we've spent this week transitioning from the fall sports to the winter, we've been taking a closer look at some of your favorite winter sports, more specifically the history. Today it's on to wrestling. The early season favorites this year, starting in Class 3A, no surprise, Apple Valley leads the pack. They've won 8 straight state championships, but tied in the finals last year with St. Michael Albertville. Also look for Prior Lake Hastings and Owatonna. Owatonna, by the way, which just won the Class 5A state football championship, came in with a new head coach a couple years ago, Cliff Castile, who replaced Scott Davis. He was at Owatonna for 25 of his 35 years as a head wrestling coach and racked up a national record 996 dual meet victories. But he resigned before the 2011 season and spent last year coaching wrestlers at Flathead High School in Kalispell, Montana. Now that a 2-year suspension from coaching leveled by the Minnesota State High School League has passed, Davis is back as the head coach at Eden Prairie. In Class 2A, Foley is the early season favorite. Also near the top, expect Albert Lee, Scott West, Cannon Falls, New Prague, Hutchinson, and last year's champ Casson Manorville. In Class 1A, Jackson County Central won it last year. They're the odds-on favorite to start the season. Also watch out for Frazee, Chatfield, Sibley East, ACGC, and KMS. The state wrestling tournament is one of the oldest under Minnesota State High School League governance. It goes all the way back to 1938. And in those early years, Minneapolis Marshall and Robbinsdale were some of the top teams, along with Faribault, Blue Earth, Owatonna, and Wayzata. Wrestling stayed in a one-class format from 38 all the way until 1975. In 76, it split into 2 classes when Albert Lee and Canby won state championships, and both teams still remain strong today. A 3rd class was added in 1996, and since that time, Apple Valley has been the dominant program in the state and in the nation. They've won 15 titles in the last 17 years. The 2013-14 girls basketball season started officially statewide last night, so today we'll look back, not on last night's games, but instead on the history of girls state basketball and its storied tradition. Although girls started playing basketball here over 100 years ago in Minnesota, it officially became a high school league sport in 1974. The first state tournament was held that fall, and Glencoe beat Wadena in the championship. Then they played another tournament in the winter when Holy Angels defeated the Sewer for the title. Just a one-class tournament in that first year, it switched to two the following year in 1976, and stayed that way for 2 decades until 1997 when they split into a 4-class system, which is what is still used today. And some famous names still stand out from tournaments past. Janet Carvinen made a name for herself and the town of New York Mills back in the late 70s. And how about the tandem of Kelly and Coco Miller from Rochester, Mayo, who gained popularity in the late 90s, then together went on to the University of Georgia before enjoying careers in the WNBA. But the most famous girls basketball player from the North Star State came a few years later from Hutchinson, and Lindsay Whalen, although she certainly gained more notoriety during her college career at the University of Minnesota. But the record book is now filled with names from the 2000s. Katie Ohm from Elgin Millville, Taylor Hill of Minneapolis South, Rebecca Dahlman from Bram, and the latest, Carly Wagner of New Richland, Heartland, Ellendale, Geneva, who broke 5 state tournament records and tied another last March, and will follow in Whalen's footsteps next year and become a Gopher.
I'm in a state of caffeination, got all my fingers shaking. Must have been my large Americano, mochaccino, macchiato. Now the family's gone to bed, and that's my favorite time to get some tips on better rates. Cause my State Farm guy answers late, and even when it's not my agent, someone's standing by so patient. Getting coverage questions answered helps me to relax. Get to a better state, State Farm.
Visit Brandy Warmbier State Farm Insurance Office, located off Singletree and Flying Cloud Drive, online at brandywarmbier.com.
The Wells Fargo Minnesota Sports Prep Update can be heard right here every Monday through Friday. And for more coverage, you can find us on the web at minnesotascores.net. That's minnesota-scores.net. I'm Ryan Phelps on Minnesota Sports Radio.
And we're joined by Rob Friend at the Mulch Store. Rob, a lot of people are finishing up those fall projects, whether it's trimming trees or getting rid of all those leaves. What can people do with those materials once they're done?
Well, they can bring their yard waste into any of our locations and dispose of it for a small fee. And after it's disposed of, we then process it and turn it into compost.
It's also a very easy, straightforward process to stop in at any of those Mulch Store locations, correct?
You just pull into any of the sites, you check in with the gate attendant and pay your small fee, and you're all set to go.
And if people would like more information about the great products and services the Mulch Store offers, what's your website?
mulchstoremn.com.
The Sun Current is proud to be your community news leader for over 50 years. Each week you can read their in-depth coverage on local government, school district news, high school sports matchups, community events, and newsmakers. The Sun Current's website is now mobile user-friendly and provides breaking local news coverage daily. Check it out at current.mnsun.com.
Think about the best athletes in the world, no matter the sport. How did they rise above the competition? These athletes didn't get to the top of their game on talent alone. They trained hard, and they trained right. PTI will work with your athlete to reach new heights. They'll get a high-level customized program from a skilled professional who truly cares about and understands your athlete's needs. The results at PTI will give your son or daughter the confidence and determination to unleash their full potential. Performance Therapy Innovations, where athletes get results.
Are you sure we should take this billboard down?
People find out State Farm does car loans as well as they do insurance. Our bank is through.
Good point. Grab an edge.
Look, there's 2 guys on the State Farm Borrow Better banking sign.
No, for real, there's 2 dudes on the State Farm Borrow Better banking sign.
Breaking news from the State Farm Borrow Better banking sign.
Seeing 2 men that have climbed the Borrow Better banking sign.
Gentlemen, please get down from the State Farm Borrow Better banking sign. Bill, get the hose. Okay, he's getting the hose.
All right, let's go.
Talk to a State Farm agent about car loans that can save you hundreds. That's borrowing better.
Visit Brandy Warmbier State Farm Insurance Office, located off Singletree and Flying Cloud Drive, online at brandywarmbier.com. Stay current on what's going on.
He sure looks good.
He does. It's hard to believe he was ever sick. But the bills, they just keep coming.
You remember the life insurance you bought years ago? It has living benefits that you could use for times like this.
Mom, he's sick. No, honey, he's fine.
Don't worry, your hair will go back. Mine did.
State Farm puts the life back in life insurance with benefits you can use when you need them most.
Visit Brandy Warmbier's State Farm Insurance Office located off Singletree and Flying Cloud Drive, online at brandywarmbier.com. It's time for another round of live local play-by-play coverage of Southwest Metro High School sports. Tonight's broadcast is brought to you by the Mulch Store, Performance Therapy Innovations, Alpha Investment Advisors, The Tavern on 4 and 5, The Sun Current, Home Video Studio, and in partnership with BEC TV, Bloomington Educational Cable Television. Catch all of the action all season long on your home for Southwest Metro Sports, PSB Media. Game time is coming up next.
Good afternoon, hockey fans, and welcome to Hasse Arena on the south side of the metro area in Lakeville for this afternoon's non-conference matchup between the Eden Prairie Eagles and the Lakeville South Cougars. Adam Rosso alongside Brett Johnson, and Brett, actually a unique situation where people are coming inside to warm up because it's so cold outside.
Yeah, absolutely. What my car thermometer say on the way in, I think I was right about at an even 0, and even a little bit of wind certainly makes it cold outside. Parking lot icy, so you're right, a little bit of an unusual situation where we're coming into an ice arena to warm up from the frigid weather we're getting outside.
So we're hoping those of you that are joining us are camped out in front of your computer or your television screen and sit back for the next couple hours and watch some boys hockey. Eden Prairie comes into this afternoon's contest 2-0. They most recently defeated Rosemount 5-4, getting a game-winning goal with under a minute to play, actually about 5 seconds left in the contest to take that battle from the Irish, and they open the season with a 6-0 shutout over Osseo. The Cougars, the hosts today, come in 1-2. They opened the season with a 5-3 victory over Egan, and then lost 2 consecutive games, one to second-ranked Hill Murray 6-0, and then the other one most recently, an overtime loss to White Bear Lake earlier this week. The Eagles coming into the afternoon have a couple guys putting up some points in the early season. Sophomore Michael Graham has 5 points, that's 1 goal and 4 assists. Junior Riley Artsinger has 4 points. He leads the team with 3 goals. He also had an assist in an earlier contest for the Cougars. They're led by senior Patrick Lauderdale. He has 6 points in 3 games, 2 goals, 4 assists. And then a couple underclassmen are the next leading point getters, Nick Ulrich and Nick Swanee, a pair of Nicks, each having 4 points apiece early in the 2013-2014 season. Starting lineups being announced just a couple minutes before we get underway here from Lakeville. And Brett, maybe you can talk about that exciting win that the Eagles had the other night against the Irish.
Well, yeah, Eden Prairie got a much closer than expected 5-4 victory over Rosemount. I know a lot of people probably thought that one might be a 5 or 6 goal game or win for Eden Prairie, but hey, Rosemount came out to play and gave Eden Prairie a good battle, and there were some last-second heroics from Steven Spinner. Although Eden Prairie coach Lee Smith did have some things to say about the game, about how his team could improve. I'm sure we could talk about that during the broadcast.
That was the national anthem sang by, looks like a Lakeville South student. Very nicely done on her behalf. So these two teams did not meet a year ago. Last meeting between the Cougars and Eagles was in January of 2012. That was a 5-3 Eden Prairie victory. Last year was a bit of a down year for both schools. The Eagles are 500, 13-1, 4-4 in the Lake Conference. And they bowed out to Benilde St. Margaret in the section semifinals. The Cougars made it all the way to the section finals, the section championship, where they lost to crosstown rival Lakeville North 6-3. They were 11-17 on the season, 6-11 in South Suburban Conference play. A couple keys to the game for those of you out there to look for. Eden Prairie in their first two contests, 92 shots on goal. They have done a nice job out shooting both of their first two opponents this season. And Lakeville South, key to them to get off to a good start. In the first period in these games, they've been outscored 4-1. So they've been down pretty much every contest. And we'll see what they can do out of the chutes as we're ready to drop the puck in Lakeville. The Eagles win the draw. Snuggerud in front of his own net. Sent up ahead. Now this is Keeley. Keeley brings it in. A nice move just off the side of the net. That was Spinner looking for the early goal. The Eagles control in their zone. Spinner has it. Out to Snuggerud at the point. He sends it on net. It's tipped up into the net by the goaltender Swale, and we'll have a face-off to his left. Good pressure by the early going for the Eagles.
Yeah, Adam, you were talking about how Eden Prairie's done a nice job out shooting their opponents. That's most certainly true, but I have a really surprising stat from their last game, that Rosemount victory. Coach Lee Smith said they attempted 83 shots, but only 40 found the net, so certainly wants to see that percentage improve.
Shot up and wide by Eden Prairie, and the puck is floating all the way down to the far end where Snuggerud controls it. Poked along the boards by the Eagles. And into the neutral zone comes Keeley. Keeley brings it in, 2-on-2, shot, save made by Swale. This is Artsinger. And Eagles control in the south end. Keeley centers it. Almost in, and it is in. That time it banked in off the goaltender Swale. We're going to credit the goal to number 8, Riley Artsinger. Kind of a fluttering puck in front of the net. Let's check the replay out.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the goaltender for Lakeville South was able to get that one cleanly, and it leads to a goal for Eden Prairie and for Artsinger, 4th of the season already after getting that hat trick on the first game of the season.
Time of the goal is, it's like 15:46. We'll call it a minute and 14 seconds in to this opening period, and the Eagles lead 1-0. Can't quite tell who they credited the assist to. I know Keeley was rushing the net, not sure if he was the last one to touch it before Artsinger ended up banking it in off the Lakeville South goalie. So as I said in the opening, Cougars once again find themselves down in the early going of a first period, which has not turned into much success through their 3 contests this season. Puck tapped around in front of the net now. Eden Prairie loses control, sent on net by Lakeville South. That's Newgard, who ended up getting the loose puck. Sent in a slow shot, not really threatening the goaltender tonight, this afternoon, which is Gertis. He covers, and the faceoff comes to the left of the senior netminder.
Yeah, Gertis getting the start for Eden Prairie tonight. Wouldn't be surprised if they end up rotating their goalies for at least the first few games this season. Evers, of course, played against Rosemount. Didn't give up some rebounds, but all of that probably due to the fact it's first varsity game.
Clays brings it in, sent across, and it is in. It's Clays with the goal. Just like that, the Eagles, 2 minutes, 5 seconds into the contest, lead 2-0.
That's another one that looked like it was banked right off the goaltender of Lakeville South. Leads to an Eden Prairie goal. Let's go ahead and get you a look at that one on replay. Yeah, Clays literally just banked it off the goaltender for Lakeville South, and kind of a tough start for him. Got to make sure you hug that post.
Snuggerud will get one assist. Didn't see if there's a secondary one or not, but we'll definitely give Snuggerud an assist. The goal by Clays. And the Eagles lead 2-0 early first. Looks like almost, Brett, that the goaltender hasn't seen the puck very well. This shot's on net. He holds into the body and covers. But at both of them, he wasn't sure where the puck was, and it ended up surprising him and going through his wickets on short angles, or terrible angles, actually, on both of them.
Yeah, sometimes you just have those nights where you're kind of fighting the puck. We'll have to see if he can improve. Those are the roughest nights as a goaltender when you're just not seeing the puck very well. We'll have to see if that changes. Otherwise, well, who knows? We might see a change between the pipes, but although still very, very early.
Swale is a junior goaltender. The only other goalie on the roster is Kyle McKinney. He's a sophomore. As Eden Prairie wins the draw, shot on net by Skinner, saved by Swale. Snuggerud at the point. Shot save made on Keeley.
Boy, gave up another rebound, too.
Yep. And Lakeville South finally gets it all his own, and it's sent to the far side. Here comes Lauderdale. Lauderdale from the left point. Sends a wrist shot on goal. Save made. A big collision at the blue line. That was Spinner and Nolan Sullivan. And once again, the Eagles into the Lakeville South zone. Lauderdale brings it out across the red line. He dumps it in and chases after it. Ends up getting to the puck, controlling it. Here's Lauderdale. Nice pass. Shot save made. Rebound save made and covered by Gertis. Nice play by Lauderdale. Really a one-man show, getting the puck after dumping it in. He sent it across. That was Lambic, senior forward for the Cougars, with two cracks at it, but Gertis holds strong between the pipes, and the faceoff will come on the Lakeville South right side.
Yeah, good job there to make Gertis go side to side. Fortunately, though, he was in perfect position to make the save, but as you said, good job by Lakeville South to finally get some offense going.
Hartsinger brings it in 2-on-2, now centers. Weak angle shot that time by Sullivan, and Swale covers once again. Eden Prairie, I know we talked before the game, Brett, that even their JV looked like they had some guys that could really skate, and you're seeing it here in the first 3.5 minutes of the varsity contest that the varsity isn't too shabby on their skates either.
Yeah, varsity, a very good skating team. That's at least what I've noticed through their first two games against Rosemount. And also Osseo just out skating their opponents. As it looks like we get another goal.
There's another goal. That was a nice individual effort. Jack Sullivan sent it across, and I think the goal will be credited to number 16, Michael Graham, the sophomore.
And looks like you're going to be right on that one, Adam, as Coach Lee Smith was talking about how his team needs to do a better job making sure their shots go on goal. Well, certainly not a problem tonight. Everything's been on net, and they're getting a lot of close-range shots as well. A lot of that coming off rebounds, too.
Goal comes at 3:46 in the first. 10 shots on net already for the Eagles, and they lead 3-0. Cougars dump it in. Can't get anything set up, and here come the Eagles once again. Racing after it is Parrish. It's tapped around. Big collision that time. Looks like there'll probably be an interference call on South, and there will be. That time, Pat Daly collided with Jack Clay. Sent Clay's hard into the boards here on the near side.
Interesting to see if they give him 5. Let's see if I can grab that hit here on a replay and see if that was against the boards. Well, I think that looked pretty nasty, although they might only give him 2 due to the fact that it was a little bit further from the boards, at least when he delivered the hit, and that's indeed what does happen, just a 2-minute penalty.
So 2-minute interference assessed to Daly of Lakeville South. Eden Prairie will go on their first power play. Not something that the Eagles needed. If you're a Cougar fan right now after the 3 even strength goals, and they're going to get another minute 40 on the man advantage. So danger time right now for the home squad. They don't want to go down 3-0 is already a quite insurmountable first period deficit. But if it goes to 4, I'd have to expect probably a goalie change.
Yeah, if not between periods, we might see one no matter whether or not they score. I mean, the Lakeville South goaltender just not quite seeing the puck as well as he probably normally does, giving up some juicy rebounds, and as you said, can't afford to fall behind by 4 goals, and this penalty going to be a big thing against Lakeville South to kind of see if they can get back in this game.
Cougars clear. Gertis out of the net. He'll steer it around to Snuggerud. The Eagles will set up the power play. Minute 15 to go in the man advantage. Skinner brings it all along the far boards. Now cuts in front of the net. Nice move. He wraps it around. Centers. And nets off of the bearings once again. Face off will come outside the zone. 11:58 to go. First period. Eden Prairie. 3 goals in the first 4 minutes of this contest, and they lead by that 3-0 score over Lakeville South. Eagles win the faceoff. Shot that time from the point, and the puck clearing attempt goes up into the Lakeville South bench.
You know, even on that shot, there was another rebound given up. You just got to find a way to kind of corral that puck and not give any up. Although, to his defense, though, a lot of these have been really hard Eden Prairie shots as well. I mean, they're really on their game in terms of getting the puck on net.
This is Aguilar. He centers it. Puts it on net, actually, and Swale covers.
And Swale, good job to get in that butterfly position. That time was able to cover it up and not give up a rebound. And also, too, if you're Lakeville South, also got to find a way to get some offense after this power play is up, because that certainly doesn't help your cause either.
Sullivan wins the draw for the Eagles. Graham with it. Now over to Aguilar. Back to Graham. Centering attempt is taken and cleared by the Cougars. 30 seconds to go on the 5-on-4 power play for Eden Prairie. Shue brings it in. Eagles onside that time, and this is Graham. Graham already has a goal this evening. He'll have him on the near circle. Aguilar. Back to Graham. Graham fires a wrist shot wide of the net. The Eagles still control. Colton Smith in the corner. As the penalty to Daly expires, Cougars back at full strength. Graham. Another centering pass, this time taken up into the air. Puck still loose. Save made. Graham has it again. Pipe was hit that time by Schmidt. Eagles still control. Schmidt on the backside of the net. Now the Cougars take it, and they can turn it into an odd man rush if they control the puck. This is Swanee. Swanee makes a move, just misses high of the goaltender Gertis. Finally, the Cougars turn some defense into offense. They get a good attempt on net, but the shot goes up over the shoulder of the Eden Prairie goaltender.
Yeah, if you're Eden Prairie, even though you're putting on pressure like that, certainly can't give up any odd-man rushes in transition. That did happen a couple of times against Rosemount, and that'll be another area they'll want to clean up before not too long.
Nice poke check that time by Dahlberg for the Cougars. Eagles forced to retreat out of their zone. Snuggerud has it deflected, and South does end up controlling. South makes the line change, and they bring it in 3-on-2. Dahlberg in the corner. And it's held in that time by Paul. Dahlberg taps it around. This is Snuggerud for the Eagles. Sends it to the point, but not out, but now it is out. As Parrish chases after it for Eden Prairie, he's met by Paul. Paul takes it away. And it's taken right back by Spinner. Shot fanned on by the Eagles. This is Spinner in the corner, one of the captains for Eden Prairie. Paul battling with Spinner. Spinner has it. Aguilar at the left point. Shot on goal, save made. Rebound, save made again by Swale. Skinner circles around, now centers it over to Aguilar. Save made into the body. Came Aguilar's shot, Swale right there. So Swale, even though he's not controlling the rebounds, doing a nice job, a lot more comfortable seeing the puck here in the last half of this period.
I would agree. He's definitely looked a lot more comfortable here over the last few minutes after a good pass by Steven Spinner over to get that to Aguilar, who fired a good shot from the point, which was, again, right on net. I'm sure something that Eden Prairie was practicing the last few days was, again, making sure those shots go on net after attempting 83 against Rosemount and only having 40 go on net.
Spinner right on cue, another shot on net into the body. Swale holds, face-off coming in the Lakeville South zone as both teams throw out a fresh set of legs. 8:06 to go, first period, 3-0. Eden Prairie. Goals by Artsinger, Clays, and Graham. Spinner and Svensson collide in the corner. Puck being held up along the boards. Emerging is Lauderdale. Lauderdale up ahead. Somebody got turned over that time. Lauderdale gets the puck, centers it. Wraparound shot not on net by the Cougars. Prairie transitions.
We've seen Lakeville South be able to get anything in front of the Eden Prairie net. Good attempt there on the centering pass, but better defense by Eden Prairie. Good goaltending there by Jake Gertis.
The South has the possession of the corner. It's Swanee. Skinner. Seems like I've called his name on most possessions this time. He controls it. It's batted ahead by the Eagles and out of the zone. Paul dumps it in for the Cougars as they change. It's Artsinger. This is Paul. Paul centers it off a stick, loose in front. It's taken by Snuggerud. He sends it ahead. This on the far side is Artsinger. Artsinger brings it in. Pad save by Swale. And right back the other way comes Lakeville South. Good body check that time by Aguilar. Eden Prairie controls. And it's not out. And now it is out. Defenseman Sullivan takes it for the Eagles. It's flipped back out. This is Parrish. Parrish comes in 1-on-2. Now drops a nice pass. Shot deflected wide. Artsinger couldn't get the shot on net. Parrish loses possession of the corner. Lauderdale. Byers. Skinner gets it back. Parrish gets it back. Shot fanned on at the point, and now it's into the neutral zone. This is Aguilar for Eden Prairie. He'll just dump it in. Eagles will change. Sullivan. Puck held in by the Eden Prairie defense. Byers to Jamison. Jamison brings it across. Sends it up ahead for a streaking winger. That was Cook. Cook ridden into the boards by an Eden Prairie defenseman. And the Eagles corral it back out of the zone.
I think Lakeville South's done a lot better here over the past 5 minutes or so. Eden Prairie hasn't had quite as many point-blank chances due to the fact that Swain's played better and their defense not getting them as good of looks at the net. And offensively, they're finally getting some opportunities as well. Nothing in terms of real grade A chances, but they're at least getting some puck possession in the zone and trying to establish a forecheck.
There's a nice interception of a clearing attempt, and the shot on net by Cook. Save made Gertis. And both teams change. 4:50 to play, first period, 3-0 Eagles. Swanee brings it into the zone. Chased after is Ulrich. Ulrich slipping through and controls in behind the net for the Cougars. Shot that time fanned on by Swanee. Eagles back the other way, 3-on-2 developing. This is Skinner. Skinner shot high and wide. And back the other way comes South. And possession is now lost, and the Eagles have a chance bringing in Schmidt. Schmidt, shot on net, save made. I don't know if the goaltender saw it as Schmidt hits the deck. But Swale ends up covering, no damage done. 4:14 to go in the opening period. Yeah, Brett, I wonder if Lakeville South just wasn't ready for the speed of Eden Prairie. I mean, they played Hill Murray, they played White Bear, they played Egan, three traditionally pretty good programs, but it just looked like the forwards and the offensive players for Eden Prairie were just too quick on their feet for the Lakeville South defenders in that first 3-4 minutes.
Well, it's interesting. Coach Lee Smith was saying that his team this season was going to be known maybe a little bit more for their size and grit, but I've really been impressed so far through now 2+ games is how good of a skating team they have. I mean, as you said, they just seem to be a step quicker than Lakeville South, and I think a lot of that is the fact that Eden Prairie does skate very well, more than the fact that Lakeville South are maybe not as quick.
Shot on net. It's through the goaltender. He doesn't see it. Boy, the puck sat about an inch from the red line. We'll see if we can get the replay on that.
Yeah,
that was
that
awfully
sat
close.
There for like an eternity in terms of hockey terms. Look at that. Just sit there and sit there and sit there until finally Swain just sat down and was able to cover it up. Almost lucky sitting down in that situation that he didn't knock it in the net. I mean, he didn't know where it was, and fortunately didn't seem like any of the Eden Prairie players knew where the puck was either.
Yeah, credit to the Lakeville South defense in front of the net. Whoever was the enforcer there keeping the forward stationed, screening Swale did a nice job. No stick and no attempt to try to trickle that puck across the line. Face-off won by the Eagles. Hartsinger has it taken away by Svensson. Svensson up ahead. This is Swanee. Swanee on the right side. Nice move between the legs. He's taken down, though. Good defense by Shue. It's Brady Shue, the junior defenseman. Centering pass. Puck is loose in front. And they'll call played with a high stick. And face-off will come out. So Lakeville South played with a high stick. And the face-off will come all the way to the opposite end. Is that the call, Brett?
Yeah, it was a high stick that looks like it was played with, so a tough break there for Lakeville South. Again, trying to get that forecheck established. They've had it a few times, but really haven't had any sequences where they've had the puck down deep in the Eden Prairie zone for a minute or two. It's all been kind of 20, 30-second forechecks, and now to get a little bit more pressure than that established.
Hartsinger with a chance. That's delivered wide, and Cougars take it back the other way. Paul sends it over to Sullivan. Sullivan circles back over to the captain, Paul. Excuse me, that's Byers. Senior defenseman for the Cougars. This is Sullivan. Sullivan pass off target and trickles back to Byers, who sends it to the red line as a Cougar is met by Michael Parrish. Sullivan for the Eagles. Mark Sullivan brings it in all the way into the zone. Centering pass. Shot deflected high. This is Sullivan again, the lefty. His pass deflected again and taken out of the zone. On a hip check into the boards was Jameson. Mark Sullivan flips it high out of the zone. The Eagles elect not to change. It doesn't get quite deep enough into the Lakeville South end of the rink. And a long shift right now as Eden Prairie has failed to gain any possession as they cross the blue line into the Cougar end. Shot steered wide that time by Swale. Schmidt to the point. And it was held in that time by the Eagles. Sent back around. Schmidt has it again on the near side. This centering pass, nice centering pass, but the shot is fanned on by Keeley. Another attempt held in by Sullivan. His shot deflected.
Well, great job here by the Eden Prairie defense to hold it in. Sullivan a great job a second ago, and that keeps the shift alive. And boy, Aguilar almost kept it alive there too, but kind of had a bouncing puck go over his stick.
Cougars do get the change. 70 seconds to go, first period, still 3-0 Eden Prairie. As the Cougars bring it in, it's going to be offside, so they have to reset. And back the other way comes Spinner. Eagles can't do much with that possession, and Lakeville breaks out 2-on-2. Shot on net, steered wide by Gertis. Dahlberg into the corner, locked up with Lawrence. Held in that time by Byers. Byers takes a shot on net. It's gloved and held on to by Gertis, 38. and 9-10 seconds to go. A faceoff will come to the right of Jake Gertis, the senior goaltender for the Eagles.
Yeah, Gertis playing in his second game this season. Didn't see a ton of shots against Osseo in that first game, which was a 6-0 victory, but Gertis really played well down the stretch for Eden Prairie between the pipes, and now it's his senior year, trying to take over that number one spot between the pipes. He spent the last 2 seasons as kind of a co-number one starter for Eden Prairie.
Whistle as the net, I believe, came off once again. Shots on goal thus far, 22 for Eden Prairie, 6 for Lakeville. So once again, with this kind of offensive attack, you don't ask your goaltender to do a whole lot. He doesn't get a lot of action, but he's been called upon a few times to make some saves tonight. He's 6 for 6 so far.
Well, he's had a couple of tough saves to make as well. I can think back to that one centering attempt that Lakeville had in the Eden Prairie zone that Gertis did a nice job going side to side on. So, been pretty sharp, yeah, despite not having a whole lot of shots.
Byers over to Sullivan, and that should end the opening 17 minutes of play. So Eden Prairie with a dominating first period. They score 3 goals in the first 4 minutes of this afternoon's contest. And we'll go to the first intermission with Eden Prairie holding a 3-0 advantage over Lakeville South. You're watching and listening to Eden Prairie Lakeville South Hockey on PSB, and we'll be back in a moment.
We're speaking with Rob Friend at the mulch store. Rob, once people have finished up trimming those trees or raking those leaves, how easy is it for them to stop in at the mulch store to drop off those materials, or maybe even pick up some mulch for next year?
Well, if you want to stop in and drop off, you come in, check in at the gate attendant, and they'll point you in the right direction after you pay a small fee. And if you're ready to pick up something to do a final garden or mulch project, pick out the product you want, pay for the fee, and we'll load up a trailer or a pickup truck if you have that. If not, we do have delivery available.
And of course, you guys have locations all over the metro area.
That's right. For locations and more information on delivery, you can check us out at our website, mulchstoremn.com.
I think I have the window seat.
You better double check that, my friend. Don't think we don't know who you are.
Yeah, I'm Aaron Rodgers.
No, that's not it. You're that State Farm discount double check guy. Discount double check. Thanks to the hundreds you saved us, we could upgrade the grill class.
Grill class?
Your tongs are in your seat back.
Save with the discount double check today. Get to a better state. State Farm.
Visit Brandy Warmbier's State Farm Insurance Office, located off Singletree and Flying Cloud Drive, online at brandywarmbier.com. Think about the best athletes in the world, no matter the sport. How did they rise above the competition? These athletes didn't get to the top of their game on talent alone. They trained hard, and they trained right. PTI will work with your athlete to reach new heights. They'll get a high-level customized program from a skilled professional who truly cares about and understands your athlete's needs. The results of PTI will give your son or daughter the confidence and determination to unleash their full potential. Performance Therapy Innovations, where athletes get results.
Eden Prairie 3, Lakeville South nothing after 17 minutes of action here from Lakeville's Hasse Arena. We will go through the scoring summary. It was all Eden Prairie, and it was all Eden Prairie early as they lit the lamp 3 times the first 3 minutes, 46 seconds. First goal coming by way of the stick of Riley Artsinger. He netted the opening goal at minute 14 seconds. Still didn't catch who was on the assist on that one. I know there was at least one. We didn't get the name, and we could not tell on the replay. So Artsinger at a minute 14. Then just 49 seconds later, it was Jack Clays who got a nice feed from Luke Snuggerud and banked it off of through the 5-hole off the pad of the netminder Swale into the net. So that way made it 2-0 Eden Prairie, and then they struck again just a minute 40 seconds later when it was Michael Graham netting his second goal of the year, his 6th point, which leads the team in points. He scored. Assist came from Jack Sullivan, his second assist of the season, and that's where we got to the 3-0 advantage, which the Eagles hold after 1 period of play. The only penalty in the period came 2 minutes on a minor served by Patrick Daly. He interfered with one of the Eagles near his own net and was sent to the box. No harm, no foul, though, because Eden Prairie was unable to capitalize on the man advantage. And Lakeville, as we talked off air, played a much better second half of the period, but it looked like initially they just weren't ready to play, especially on the defensive end of the arena.
Yeah, it was a combination of a couple of things. I think you're absolutely right that Lakeville South just really did come out flat to start that first period, but again, you also got to credit Eden Prairie. They're a very good skating team, and I know the coaching staff got on them to make sure that their shots were going to go on net, and you can already see that through this game. I think they've only missed the net maybe a few times in that first period. I mean, their shot accuracy has been tremendous, and it's really paid off by getting a couple of rebounds. But as you said, Lakeville South improved towards the later stages of that first period. Just the problem is they've dug themselves that 3-0 hole, and it's tough to see them getting 3 goals in this game. Gertis has looked awfully sharp for Eden Prairie. And, of course, the offense of the Eagles will likely keep coming as well. Wouldn't be surprised if they can get maybe 1 or 2 more goals. But I think it's important here for Lakeville South to start that second period. At least try to get a goal, I would say, within maybe by about the 10-minute mark to kind of get yourself back in the game. And, of course, come out with a lot more energy to start that second period. And who knows what happens if you can pop in a goal or 2 in that second period.
Yeah, that's really the key. They have to come out with a little more fire, a little more spark than they showed in the opening stages of the first period. We spoke in the opening. Now they've been outscored 7-1 in the opening periods in their 4 contests this season. So something not getting these guys charged up in the locker room before they come out and the puck drops. But they're going to have to play from behind. The one caveat being they've obviously played from behind this year if they've been down in most of their early season games. So we will take a 2-minute break, come back, try to get some scores from any of their afternoon contests around the metro area. Once again, after 17 minutes of play, Eden Prairie leads Lakeville South 3-0. You're watching high school hockey on PSB. And we're back. Adam Rosso alongside Brett Johnson. First intermission in Lakeville. Eden Prairie, behind the strength of 3 early goals, takes a 3-goal advantage into the locker room after 17 minutes of play. Some area scores to pass along to you before we get to second period action. Eastview 2, Prior Lake nothing. That's after 2 periods of play here in the South Suburban Conference. St. Cloud Cathedral over Rochester Lourdes. That's also in the second intermission. That's a 2-0 score. Chaska Dodge County 3-1 heading to the third period. Another outstate score. Grand Rapids 4, Warroad 2. That was late in the third, so it looks like Grand Rapids going to down Warroad in a matchup of 2 northern Minnesota powerhouses. Private school battle going on in the cities closer to home. Totino Grace leads Holy Angels 2-1, and at last check that was late in the second period. And after 1 period in Champlin, the Rebels of Champlin Park lead Coon Rapids, the Cardinals, 2-0. And finally, White Bear Lake, who just beat these Lakeville South Cougars in overtime earlier this week, they hold a 2-0 advantage over Mounds View, the Mustangs, and that one late in the first 17 minutes of play.
And, of course, a lot of games going to be taking place during the evening hours. I know there's a couple of top 10 matchups. Did receive a message from one of our viewers for tonight's game. This is from Grandpa Swaney. Just wants to make sure it's actually Swaney as the netminder for Lakeville South, so glad to have that pointed out to us. We tried to get some pronunciations as quick as we could, but only get so much time before the game. And Grandpa Swaney, thanks for tuning in. He certainly played a lot better, I think, during the end of that second period, as his team. I mean, of course, a lot of those goals were the fact that his team didn't do a whole lot to help him out either. Really, just the entire Lakeville South squad kind of came out flat to start that first period. But I think they've straightened things out, and, of course, Swaney and net did a much better job covering up those initial shots and not giving up rebounds.
Swaney, the forward, actually, Brett. The goalie is Swale.
Oh, okay.
Swale.
So my point was worthless then.
Junior netminder. Swaney, sophomore forward. Swaney actually on the season. He has 4 points, 3 goals and an assist. Last year, he led the Cougar team in points as a 9th grader. He had 25 total from his forward position. So getting ready to go. Teams back on the ice. Eagles huddling up.
Something. All right.
So, like we said in the break, imperative for the Cougars to come out, mount some more offense, and then hopefully get one on the board within the first half to 7 minutes to 8 minutes of this period, because otherwise time's going to become a factor, especially with the potent offense that the Eagles have shown in the first period. Spinner and Lauderdale face at the red line, and the Eagles win the draw, and we're underway in the second period. Schmidt up the right side. Centering pass comes all the way through to the boards. And Skinner rushes the net, but he is turned away by a defenseman. Chasing after it is Schmidt. Schmidt ridden into the boards on the far end as the Eagles maintain possession in the south zone. Snuggerud battling in the corner. And now the point man, Shu. His shot is blocked, and South comes back the other way. A potential 4-on-2 if they hurry. And Snuggerud does a nice job stopping the shot from being taken, and by that, Lakeville South has to retreat to become onside. Snuggerud banks it up ahead to Schmidt, and he sends it in. But it's going to be an icing call as Schmidt was not across the red line. Face-off coming right in front of us to the right side of Gertis.
Yeah, talking about Luke Snuggerud breaking up that play just a couple of minutes ago. Last season really did a better job in the second half of the season, playing better defense. It was an area of the game that he and the coaching staff wanted to improve on, and certainly did that second half of last year, and of course tonight doing a good job as well.
Shot deflected, nearly went in. Swale that time steers it wide with his pad. This is Lambeck. Lambeck has it. Dahlberg to Sullivan. Nolan Sullivan has it taken away by Eden Prairie. And the Eagles now have possession. Artsinger. Tapped ahead, Byers. Byers, nice pass. Here comes Dahlberg. He is met, and nice job neutralizing his ability to shoot the puck. That time was Aguilar for Eden Prairie as the Cougars send it behind Gertis. This is Aguilar. Brings it back to the neutral zone. And Lakeville South sends it into Gertis once again. Puck banked off the boards all the way down to the opposite end of the ice where Daly controls. South brings it in. Shot on net, save made, rebound, not controlled, but fanned on by Cook, the sophomore for the Cougars. Back come the Eagles the other way. Shot into the body, save made, rebound, now covered up by Swale. There's some jostling going on in front of the netminder.
Swain doing a good job again to cover up a little rebound he gave up, but got to go back to the Eden Prairie defense. Again, doing a good job to break up a couple of plays. Had a near breakaway a second ago, but Aguilar did a good job getting on defense to break up that play for Eden Prairie.
Shot by Snuggerud, deflected wide of the goal. Spinner has it. Shot, score. Spinner to Schmidt, and it's 4-0 Eagles.
Glad to see Colton Schmidt get on the scoreboard for Eden Prairie. He had about 5 point-blank chances against Rosemount in the last game and just could not find the back of the net. This time he does off of a great pass from Colton Schmidt, and that puts Eden Prairie ahead 4-0, as you can see it here on the replay. A great pass to Schmidt.
Boy, Spinner really is the catalyst of this Eden Prairie offense. Beautiful job that time on the centering pass. Found an open Schmidt. Snuggerud sends it in. Eagles right back to the attack. Snuggerud after it. Battling along the boards is the senior defenseman. Schmidt out with it. This is Spinner. Spinner. That time the centering pass is intercepted, taken away.
And with those passes from Steven Spinner, you can see why he's a Division I recruit set to play hockey at Nebraska Omaha next season, along with Luke Snuggerud. Great vision on that pass to Schmidt.
Snuggerud centering pass. Save made by Swale. Another golden opportunity for the Eagles. Swale at home on the 2-on-1. Lakeville right back the other way. Shot tipped up into the net above the glass, and they'll have another face-off in the near circle.
Take a look at that replay. Swale did a great job reading that play. He had a hunch that pass was going to go over to the weak side, read it all the way, and made a great save.
Definitely the save of the day thus far. That was probably one of the better chances Eden Prairie had. Pure scoring chance. Swale, Johnny on the spot. Out of the zone comes Clays for the Eagles. He brings it in onside, 2-on-2, and the puck flutters over the net on the far end up near the scoreboard, so we'll have a face-off in the south goal. 12:46 to play second period, 4-0 Eden Prairie. The goal coming in the second period was Colton Schmidt. Assist went to Steven Spinner. 2:57 of the second period was the goal. 4-0 is the advantage for Eden Prairie.
And for Colton Schmidt, that's his first goal on the season. Glad for him, as he was one of the top 5 scorers for Eden Prairie last season, now getting on the score sheet, playing up on that first line.
Pager brings it in now. Eden Prairie shoots on net. Save made, Swale, and it's into the corner. Aguilar now at the point, can't keep it in. Still offside as the Cougars control back the other way. Dahlberg has the pass taken away. A little bit sloppier play here in the neutral zone in the second period than we saw in the first from both schools. There's a little less flow. This one's iced by the Cougars. Face off and go back all the way to the other end in the Lakeville South zone.
Yeah, a little sloppy on both teams, and if you're Lakeville South, got to take advantage of that, at least on Eden Prairie's part, already giving up that early second period goal. Again, I think they could really get some momentum if they could just get one past Jake Gertis. I mean, I don't think they've necessarily played poorly here in the second period, but Eden Prairie's just been a step quicker.
A couple players into the corners, falling down. Here's the centering pass in front of Swale.
Well, you can't leave someone open in front like that.
Snuggerud sends it high. Looked like it hit the blocker of Swale up near his face mask. And goes up into the net, so another face-off in the Lakeville South zone. This one to the right of the junior goaltender, Daniel Swale. He saved 24 shots tonight through a period and a half, give or take. But problem is Eden Prairie has 28 shots attempted on goal, so he's allowed 4 pucks in the net. Snuggerud has a bouncing puck. He gives it up in the zone. Nice move that time. Save made off the skate.
And I think Luke Snuggerud got a piece of the Lakeville South player as well to kind of pester him enough to put that shot wide.
That was Swaney. 2 attempts on Gertis. Turned away was the sophomore Swaney, and now the puck out of the Cougar zone. Chasing after it was Jack Sullivan. He's going to go to the box as Sullivan and Patrick Daly were skating after it. Sullivan looked like he just hit the deck, lost his edge, and went into the legs of Daly. We'll see if they call it tripping or what it'll be, and it will be tripping. So, South goes on their first advantage of the afternoon. 2-minute tripping penalty assessed to Jack Sullivan, the Eden Prairie senior.
It's important, too. This is Lakeville South's first power play of the game, and it's a good sign, at least for Eden Prairie, that they've played almost half this game without giving up a penalty. In their first game against Osseo, they had 7 penalties, and certainly an area of the game they wanted to clean up in. Done a nice job so far. As you said, that was kind of an inadvertent penalty where Sullivan lost his balance and just crashed into the legs of the Lakeville South player. That's a penalty you're okay with if you're the coaching staff. It was more of a hustle penalty than a mental mistake penalty.
Definitely. So the Cougars, first man advantage of the afternoon. They set up their power play. This is Swaney. Shot doesn't make it to the net. Now hard slap shot, rebound, save made. Looked like one of the South players had an open net. He just couldn't get his stick on the puck. Back the other way, shorthanded comes Eden Prairie. This is Spinner. Spinner looked like he hit the side of the net on his attempt. Now he holds in the corner, shorthanded.
No pun intended, but he almost spun his way in front and scored a goal there. Good setup by Spinner.
Ulrich has it on the near boards. Now it's Lauderdale. Lauderdale on net. Shot.
What a pass delivered. I think it was number 13 for Lakeville South to throw that in front. Fortunately for him, Gertis was there in position to make the save, but I like that setup for Lakeville South.
That was Swaney again.
See if you can look at that pass here on the replay. Yeah, look at that pass, getting it through the stick of an Eden Prairie player. That's much tougher than it looks.
Couple nice chances on the power play so far for the Cougars. Nothing to show for it. Here's a shot from the point, deflected wide. Eden Prairie defender got a stick on it. Swaney behind the net. Centers. Puck held in by Daly. Daly to Lauderdale. Lauderdale cross. Nobody to home. Swaney has it again. He holds on the near boards. Lauderdale. Centers. Shot save. That time it was Byers. And puck tapped ahead, and this is a 2-on-none. Here comes Keeley.
Keeley just put that wide on a 2-on-0. Don't really blame him for taking the shot, but boy, a 2-on-0, got to make sure you at least get at the net to give your teammate a chance at a rebound, though.
Penalty expires. The Eagles kill their first penalty of the evening. And we're back to full strength. 5-on-5 hockey. 8:40 to go. Second period. Bump off the puck that time was Jack Sullivan, who served that 2-minute penalty.
Good Lakeville South power play, though. I like what they did.
Nice pass up ahead. This is Dahlberg bringing it in. There's going to be a penalty, absolutely. Didn't see who has sent that pass across from his own blue line, but right on the tape of Tony Dahlberg, who was then held by number 6, Andy Aguilar. He'll go to the box. I think it will be 2 minutes for holding.
Yeah, I couldn't get the number on that pass either. It was on the far corner of the rink, but that was a nice job to get a lucky bounce on that pass. It actually bounced over the stick of an Eden Prairie player and came right away to his teammate, and good offense created. They've had a couple of those chances so far in this second period. 3 really good chances, so gotta like that if you're Lakeville South.
Man, it was 22-6 in that first period. Now halfway home in period 2, shots on goal 29-12. So 7-6, pretty even second period, but Eden Prairie, the only ones who's gotten on the board. They have 1 goal in this second period by way of Colton Schmidt. Shot save made again. Gertis doesn't control the rebound, but Eden Prairie's defense right there banked off the top of the glass and out. 1:36 to go on the man advantage. There's a couple crisp passes, and here come the Cougars into the zone. 3-on-2 shot. Save made on the stick. That time Gertis Lembeck took the shot for the Cougars. And they're going to call.
There's a lot of traffic in front. I think they're going to say there was a Lakeville South player in the crease before that shot was fired.
It's Tate Newgard battling Brady Shue. Newgard for the Cougars, Shue for the Eagles. Face-off will come just outside the Eden Prairie blue line. Eagles control, and they send the puck back down into the Cougar end. Nice job that time on the check. Oh, pass just out of the reach of Spinner. Otherwise, it would have been a breakaway for the senior forward for the Eagles.
It's been about the only thing Lakeville South has done wrong on their power plays. They have given Eden Prairie a couple of short-handed chances, but they've had good puck movement on their power plays, especially that first one. Here on the second, it hasn't been quite as crisp, but they're still creating some chances.
Captain to captain, Lauderdale to Byers. He circles. Drops it back for Swaney. Swaney centers. Off on the Eagle. Back to the point. Swaney has it on the near side. This is Lauderdale. Lauderdale tries to fit it into a tight space. Swaney does control. Lauderdale at the goal line. Nice pass. Shot scored! Lauderdale to Tate Newgard, and the Cougars are on the board. Excuse me, that was Ulrich.
A tic-tac-toe, really nice play. Crisp passing. Take a look at this on the replay. This is as beautiful a puck movement as you'll ever see on a power play. Only get the tail end of that one, but as you probably saw in live action, really solid play by Lakeville South on the power play. Good passing, good quick passing, and a one-timer in front gets them on the scoreboard.
So it took them a little while on their second power play of the second period, but Nick Ulrich scores at 10:21 of the second period. Assist coming by way of Nick Swaney and Pat Lauderdale, and the deficit cut to 3 as South on the board here midway through the second period.
I was thinking Swaney had to get an assist on that one. He was also part of that play that delivered a number of good passes just like he did on that first power play. Very dangerous with the man advantage we can already see with Swaney.
Puck in the south zone behind the net. That's Artsinger and DJ Paul fighting for it. Shot high by Shue all the way up over near the referee. And that's Artsinger behind the net. Snuggerud tried to fit a pass. It was just past his outstretched stick. Wraparound attempt. Puck loose in front. Still in the Eagles zone, and South away with it. They dump it down. They'll change with Dahlberg chasing after it. Oh, a giveaway in front of the net, nearly onto the stick of Kyle Jamison. Sloppy play that time. Net comes off. And the face-off will the outside of the Eden Prairie zone. 5:25 to go in the period. Goals this period by Schmidt of the Eagles and Ulrich of the Cougars. I think the referee needed some water to service the goal. Not sure, but
yeah, I didn't hear that either.
Back to action. The Eagles win the draw. Puck up into the air and out of the zone. Sofferer. Pager for Eden Prairie. Bumped off the puck and it trickles back to Mark Sullivan, who fires it across ice. Aguilar doesn't keep it in. Cougars back the other way. I think that was Kyle Jamieson batting at the puck, and it's deflected up out of the surface of play. I guess I was going to say field of play.
Yeah, it still kind of feels like football season. At least not outside, of course, but all the big games taking place today along the college ranks. I'm at least looking forward to some college football tonight.
Yep. Luke Snuggerud carries it in. Puck circles around the nets. Spinner lets it go. And Lauderdale controls for the Cougars. Sullivan in the corner for Lakeville. Swaney near side to Ulrich. Ulrich, his pass cross ice is deflected. He delivers a blow to Spinner. Prairie comes out with it 3-on-3. Spinner, nice poke check that time by Drew Byers. That was captain versus captain, and Byers stuck his stick right into the puck, deflected it into the corner off of Skinner's attack, and yet another face-off coming all the way, well, and back all the way into Eden Prairie zone. So it must have been another man in the crease, or they're going to call a penalty, excuse me.
Oh, yeah, I'm kind of surprised by that myself, and that's a big penalty against Eden Prairie. We're here in the last 4 minutes of the second period, and the Lakeville South power plays look really sharp tonight, and boy, if they can put through a second goal, they're right back in this hockey game.
I believe 2 minutes for roughing was the call. Cougars win the draw, shot sent wide. So Spinner gets 2 minutes. He brought it into the zone. I didn't see the roughing after he was poked away, but he must have got up into Byers, who made the nice play to get the puck out of his possession. So as you said, 1 for 2 on the power play in the period are the Cougars, but they've looked a lot better than they have on 5-on-5 play. So we'll see what they can do to cut into the 4-1 Eden Prairie lead. Nice job that time was Artsinger clearing it out as the Cougars tried to set up their power play. 3:17 to go in the period, 1:15 to go on the man advantage. Nolan Sullivan brings it in for the Cougars. Ahead is Dahlberg. Dahlberg, the lefty, sends it into the corner. Newgard held in the zone and now taken by Eden Prairie. That's Michael Graham. Puck sent in as the Eagles change.
Penalty kill for Eden Prairie's done a better job here on this shift, kind of getting in the way of the Lakeville South passing lanes and not letting them set up.
That was Schmidt who already had a goal, and he's going to draw a slashing penalty on the Cougars. So we'll get a little bit of 4-on-4 hockey before Eden Prairie will go on the first power play of the second period. Looks like they're going to tag Nolan Sullivan, sophomore defenseman, also number 25. He'll go to the box for 2 minutes on the slash. So a sloppier play in the second period, and that's led to 4 penalties, 3 by the Eagles, 1 by the Cougars. Neither team should be very fatigued, as I think they both played on I think Tuesday, so should have fresh legs.
Tuesday. I'm not sure about Lakeville South. I know they played during the week, just not sure which day it was.
Not sure what the call was here.
It might have been an ice since we are 4-on-4, but that was a really ill-timed penalty for Lakeville South. When you get a power play chance before the end of the period, a chance to cut back into the lead, they can't afford to take a penalty in that situation and put a very good Eden Prairie skating team into a 4-on-4 situation where they're going to have more ice to work with.
And this is going to be another ice. As nobody home, Swaney off the boards, but his forward up ahead was not anywhere near that pass, so the power play, the 4-on-4 face-off will come, and then in another 10 seconds, Spinner will be out of the box for the Eagles, and they'll go on about a 80-second power play.
Yeah, 4-on-4, it's really tempting to try to hit those home run passes with more ice space to work with, but Sweeney couldn't quite hit it on that last one.
Nice move that time, Lauderdale trying to go between two defenders. Prairie on the power play, shooting out of the box comes Spinner. Art Singer brings it in. And puck bouncing around. Spinner finally has it in the right corner. Point is Parrish. Parrish to Snuggerud. Snuggerud back to Parrish. Parrish, Snuggerud as they cycle. Nice pass that time across to Spinner. His shot, once again, I couldn't tell if it deflected off the shoulder of Swale or not, but that one up into the rafters. And they'll reset. 45 seconds to go on the slashing penalty to Nolan Sullivan of the Cougars.
Yeah, well, they will say it was knocked off Swale with the penalty staying down in the Lakeville South zone.
Snuggerud at the point. He goes to Parrish. Back to Snuggerud. Snuggerud, shot deflected, save made, rebound, scored! Looks like 28 for the Eagles. That's Clay's, his second of the afternoon.
Now the baseball player Jack Clay's getting on the scoreboard twice. First season playing varsity hockey for the Eagles, and he's on the scoreboard twice. Taking a look at that movement, Swale gave up a rebound, and Clay's was able to backhand it home for Eden Prairie. Again, Swale had not given up many rebounds as of late, but that time it came back to bite him again, and Clays was there to pounce on it for Eden Prairie.
15:52 the time of the goal. Clays second of the game. Here's another attempt that time, shot wide by Eden Prairie. They do give Art Singer and Parrish the assists. So Art Singer and Parrish assists on the Clays goal at 15:52. Eden Prairie right back to the attack. A couple chances that time, but nothing to show for it. Centering attempts goes all the way back to Snuggerud. He takes a shot and goes right into the left mitt of Swale. So really, as you said, that momentum completely shifted from the Cougars to the Eagles with the slashing penalty, as Lakeville South had an effective power play earlier in the period. Then they get a penalty, and then it seemed like from then Eden Prairie really turned the screws and tightened up, and then finally found the back of the net.
Of course, when you lose your own power play like that, gives Eden Prairie a power play chance, and they were able to score, and that kind of puts the game out of reach now at 5-1.
Snuggerud brings it in. Approaching 10 seconds to go in the period. Clays sends it behind the net. Snuggerud comes to play it from the point. And it's held up against the boards in the corner. And that is how our second period will come to a close. So after 34 minutes of play, we go to the second intermission with the score. Eden Prairie 5, Lakeville South 1. We'll be back with scores and highlights of that second period. You're watching boys hockey on PSB.
Think about the best athletes in the world, no matter the sport. How did they rise above the competition? These athletes didn't get to the top of their game on talent alone. They trained hard, and they trained right. PTI will work with your athlete to reach new heights. They'll get a high-level customized program from a skilled professional who truly cares about and understands your athlete's needs. The results at PTI will give your son or daughter the confidence and determination to unleash their full potential. Performance Therapy Innovations, where athletes get results. We're speaking with Rob Friend at the mulch store. Rob, once people have finished up trimming those trees or raking those leaves, how easy is it for them to stop in at the mulch store to drop off those materials, or maybe even pick up some mulch for next year?
Well, if you want to stop in and drop off, you come in, check in at the gate attendant, and they'll point you in the right direction after you pay a small fee. And if you're ready to pick up something to do a final garden or mulch project, pick out the product you want, pay for the fee, and we'll load up a trailer or a pickup truck if you have that. If not, we do have delivery available.
And of course, you guys have locations all over the metro area.
That's right. For locations and more information on delivery, you can check us out at our website, mulchstoremn.com.
Welcome back to Haase Arena in Lakeville. The South Cougars taking on the Eden Prairie Eagles after 2 periods of play. It's the Eagles, the 5th-ranked team in Class 2A, leading the Cougars by a score of 5-1. Scoring in that second period was a back-and-forth period, a much more competitive period than we saw in that opening 17 minutes. Eden Prairie lit the lamp first. It was Colton Schmidt at 2:57 of the second period, assisted by Steven Spinner. So Spinner and Schmidt connecting on the goal. That made it a 4-0 score. Then Lakeville South had a couple power plays, and they ended up converting. It was Nick Ulrich on a beautiful pass score. Last assist coming from Lauderdale. Swaney with the second assist. Ulrich with the goal. Now it came at 10:21 of the second, made it a 4-1 game, and it looked like the Cougars were getting some momentum, but a couple minutes later they took a bad penalty late in the period, and then when it came back to a power play, Eden Prairie was able to convert. Jack Clay is his second goal of the afternoon, came at the 15:52 mark. 2 assists on that one went to Riley Artsinger and Michael Parrish, and that's how we come to a 5-1 advantage after 2 periods here in Lakeville. Penalties for the period, actually a little bit sloppier play. Eden Prairie assessed 3 penalties, a trip, a hold, and a rough, all of the minor penalty variety. And the key penalty, really the momentum-changing penalty, was the slashing minor assessed to Nolan Sullivan, which negated a power play for the Cougars, and then in turn Eden Prairie was able to convert once they became on the power play, and that really possibly put the game out of reach, of 5-1 advantage going into this final period of play. So we'll take a 2-minute break, come back, check in on those area scores, and bring you third period action. Once again, we're live in Lakeville. 5-1 your score. Eden Prairie leads Lakeville South. You're watching boys hockey on PSB. Eden Prairie 5, Lakeville South 1. As the Zamboni resurfaces the ice before we get set to go in the third and final period of action from Lakeville. Look at the area scoreboard. A couple finals in here on the Saturday afternoon. Very frigid Saturday afternoon, and it probably was even colder up north where Grand Rapids ended up defeating Warroad 5-3. That is a final, so Grand Rapids completes the back-to-back wins over Roseau and then Warroad here in the last couple of evenings. So I'm sure the Thunderhawks, Thunderbirds,
something like that. They're the Thunder something.
We'll have a happy bus ride across the state back to Grand Rapids. Eastview Downs, Prairie Lake 5-0. So big win for the Lightning. They shut out the Lakers convincingly up in Apple Valley. Mid-third, Totino and Holy Angels all knotted up at 2. So a good one between those two schools brewing. I'm not sure if that's in Richfield or if it's up in Fridley, but either way, a good contest between those schools. White Bear leads Mounds View. That one's nearing second intermission. They're up 2-0 are the Bears over the Mustangs. Champlin Park maintains an advantage. It's now 3-0 Rebels over Cardinals. That one also heading to the second intermission. And from the SEC, early second quarter, Missouri just took a 17-14 lead over Auburn in the SEC championship game from Atlanta.
Oh, how about that? SEC championship. Missouri's winning, huh?
Yeah, they just looked like they just returned a fumble for a touchdown. So if you recall last year, Alabama-Georgia was, I believe, a 35-33 down-to-the-wire contest. So it looks like another high-scoring affair from the Georgia Dome between Gus Malzahn and Gary Pinkel's crew for what could be the right to play in the BCS National Championship game, depending on what happens later this evening between Ohio State and Michigan State.
I think if Missouri would win, they would have a pretty good argument to leapfrog Ohio State. I think I heard something that they played one of the toughest schedules in the country. I think they would have beaten 3 top 10 teams, but tough to argue with undefeated if you're Ohio State. I'm sure there'd be some unhappy Big Ten folks, including Commissioner Jim Delaney, if undefeated Ohio State were to not play for the national title. Think about that. 2 straight years undefeated, and you don't get a shot at the national title. Of course, the first one, their own fault.
And you'd think if this SEC championship stays close as it is right now, that would actually hurt the odds of one of the two teams getting in, because if it were a blowout and one team won in convincing fashion, they might say, hey, this team is, especially if it was Auburn after beating Alabama, if they came in and knocked out Missouri convincingly, they would have quite the case, you would think, to bolster their resume. Being their one loss was on the road early against LSU. Really, the last couple months, you can't argue that anybody else in the country has been playing better than the Tigers.
Yeah, we'll have to see how things work out tonight, especially if Ohio State were to blow out Michigan State, too.
You'd have to think Ohio State wins. They should. I say should because it's the BCS, but they should get a spot in the national championship game. Right or wrong, Big Ten, it isn't the power of the SEC, but it is a power conference. And, going undefeated, not just one year, but last year when they were on probation. That's quite the feat by Urban Meyer's crew, but they still have to beat a very tough Michigan State squad whose defense is right there with the elite in any conference, and obviously the best in the Big Ten.
Yeah, they shut down the Gophers in the last game of the season, although pretty much everyone shut down the Gopher offense, unfortunately. But, yeah, Michigan State's an impressive team. I didn't watch the game, but I heard when they lost to Notre Dame that there was a very controversial pass interference call at the end of the game that kind of allowed the Irish to win it. And who knows where we'd be at if Michigan State were undefeated, too, if not for that weird Notre Dame call.
And I don't believe they played Wisconsin. They obviously hadn't played Ohio State, so neither of the Big Ten schools that are in the championship game really had a very impressive resume, especially Notre Dame beating Michigan State, Notre Dame down compared to where they were a season ago, and then Michigan State's other non-conference wins. I don't know off the top of my head, but there's nothing that I think they can write home about, really stake their name to if they do happen to pull the upset tonight.
Well, yeah, their non-conference wins, I don't know who they were against, but I think they were probably some of those directional Michigan schools, whoever they would be. Or I know Ohio State had a couple of games, I think, against Ohio U and Miami, and those wins really aren't going to do a whole lot to bolster your resume.
Should be interesting, as always. First week in December, is championship weekend, and there are some interesting storylines tonight as the day progresses. I'm sure everybody will be glued to their sets. The latter stages of the SEC game right into the Big Ten championship. So goals being put on the bearings and the team's back on the ice. We'll take a quick 30-second break and be back with the final period. Your score, Eden Prairie 5, Lakeville South 1. You're listening and watching boys hockey on PSB.
And we're joined by Rob Friend at the mulch store. Rob, a lot of people are finishing up those fall projects, whether it's trimming trees or getting rid of all those leaves. What can people do with those materials once they're done?
Well, they can bring their yard waste into any of our locations and dispose of it for a small fee. And after it's disposed of, we then process it and turn it into compost.
It's also a very easy, straightforward process to stop in at any of those mulch store locations, correct?
You just pull into any of the sites, you check in with the gate attendant and pay your small fee, and you're all set to go.
And if people would like more information about the great products and services the mulch store offers, what's your website?
mulchstoremn.com.
Think about the best athletes in the world, no matter the sport. How did they rise above the competition? These athletes didn't get to the top of their game on talent alone. They trained hard, and they trained right. PTI will work with your athlete to reach new heights. They'll get a high-level customized program from a skilled professional who truly cares about and understands your athlete's needs. The results at PTI will give your son or daughter the confidence and determination to unleash their full potential. Performance Therapy Innovations, where athletes get results.
Then we're back. Team's ready to start the third period. Another quick score update. St. Cloud Cathedral downing Rochester Lourdes in a matchup of two ranked teams in Class 1A. 3-0 Crusaders over the Eagles. As we're back to action, Eden Prairie, I was going to say it looked like it was offsides, and they will be. So what do you do, Brad, if you're the Cougars? You had a little bit of success, then probably not a most positive locker room after the last sequence of the second period, but still a decent amount of time left if they can mount any sort of a charge.
Yeah, it might be too late to try to come back and win the hockey game, but your goal might be to just try to win the third period, see if you can outscore Eden Prairie here in the third period, maybe get a goal or two, and try to limit Eden Prairie's chances. And you've got to stay out of the penalty box if you're Lakeville South and try to draw some penalties yourself as well. The one bright spot for Lakeville South has certainly been their power play. So it's just all about hustling. I mean, hustle plays will draw penalties. And that's what Lakeville South has to do. Just show some energy, too.
Puck circles around. Patrick Daly. And now DJ Paul with the puck. Paul has it. Passes up into Swaney. Swaney trying to work his way around Snuggerud. Snuggerud has none of it and takes the puck away from the sophomore, Swaney. Shoot. Loses control. Centering pass. Shot just wide. That was Swaney. A golden opportunity. He just missed the bottom left corner.
He caught Jake Gertis going down way too early as well, but unfortunately just missed the net on that attempt. Golden opportunity for the Cougars.
Prairie. Puck centered. Late pass that time by the Eagles, and Cougars there to intercept. Swaney brings it in again. Swaney quick on his feet. Not very big. Of course, he's a sophomore, so he's got a couple years to grow, but he's got some nice moves when he gets into space. Entering the zone.
That's really a unbelievable thing you just brought up. I don't have the roster in front of me, but Swaney's only a sophomore. Man, I'm sure there's a lot of coaches in the South Suburban Conference that were wishing he was a senior right now.
Yeah, like he said last year, he had 25 points as a ninth grader for the Cougars. He obviously assisted this evening in the only goal, so he has 4 assists and a goal on the season thus far. So another productive year shaping up for the sophomore. So they got 2 more years of him after this to deal with through the rest of the coaches in the South Suburban. Face off right in front of us. Taken by Paul. Center out, held in by Aguilar. Aguilar now to Cougars come back to center ice. Lembeck brings it in, gets away from Aguilar, centers, lined up shot just wide of the net. That time was Daly, who had it teed up, and he just missed the goal altogether. Aguilar brings it from the zone, 2-on-2, shot on net, turned aside. Jack Sullivan going at it with two Cougars on the far boards. Now the puck jarred loose. Shot from the left point, deflected and stopped before it reaches the goaltender. And sent out. No icing as Gertis out of the net to play it for the Eagles. Just about 3 minutes gone by in the last period of this afternoon's game. 5-1, Eagles maintain their 4-goal lead. Byers sends it in. That'll be a tip, so no icing as Jamison chases after it for the Cougars. Out of the zone. Nobody controls it. Now Eden Prairie. Out of the scrum is Parrish. Parrish drops it off and drops it right to a Cougar defender. This is Drew Byers. Byers cross ice to Sullivan. Sullivan back to Byers. Good pressure applied now by the Eagles as the puck's going to go all the way off the boards and down for an icing.
I'd like to remind you while we have a moment that you can watch lots of Eden Prairie boys hockey games not only here on PSBMN.com but also at the Tavern on 4 and 5 in Eden Prairie. They'll show several games on the big screen, so watch some hockey, get some great food, delicious cheeseburgers, also some great cheesy tater tots. Check it out, Tavern 4 and 5 in Eden Prairie.
Shot from the point, that was Snuggerud. Got all the way through. Swale does a nice job covering for the Cougars. Faceoff will come to his left. So really since those opening minutes, Swale's done a nice job. He's stopped, 31 shots now. But the Eagles scored on, I think, 3 of their first 8 in the game. There's another attempt by Spinner, turned aside by Swale. Spinner, nice pass. Ooh, off the stick. The backhand attempt that time was Keeley. He's going to draw a penalty. Will, the senior forward. Snuggerud, extra skater now on for the Eagles. Snuggerud brings it in.
What a job by Snuggerud. He's everywhere with the puck.
Still on his feet. Looked like he lost his footing, but still had the puck.
Almost went around the world.
So some extra time on the man advantage at 6 on 5. As Gertis is on the bench. Now the Cougars finally touch up. Not sure who's going to get the penalty. I know Keeley drew it.
It feels like it was so long ago with how long Eden Prairie was skating around with the puck.
Holding is the call. 19 sophomore defenseman will be assessed the 2-minute penalty at the 4-minute 18-second mark of the third period. Third power play of the evening for Eden Prairie. They're 1 for 2 thus far. Clay has provided the power play goal on their most recent advantage. That was late in the second period. Snuggerud brings it in. He's alongside Clays. Snuggerud circling the net, looking, still looking, and now he'll set it up from the far point. Spinner across ice, off the boards. Kept in by Snuggerud. Spinner, Snuggerud. Parrish, his shot is high. Spinner controls. Snuggerud has it. Spinner, even with the netminder. Parrish. Back to Snuggerud. Snuggerud takes the attempt off the glove of Swale and down to the ice, but Hartsinger had a whack at it. He couldn't put it past Swale, and they cover. So a lot of possession in the Lakeville South zone, but that was the first shot on net, minute and 12 seconds into the advantage.
You were calling Snuggerud and Spinner a lot, playing catch and staying very patient, but Lakeville South did a good job on their coverage, really not breaking down and not giving Snuggerud and Spinner anything to look at when they were carrying it around with the puck.
Shoe behind the net. He'll set up the rush for the Eagles. And they get it into the neutral zone, but not into the Cougar zone. It's cleared back down the opposite end of the ice by DJ Paul. And unless the Eagles mount a quick charge, it looks like they're going to go 1 for 3 with the man advantage. Aguilar from the point, walks in. Easy save that time by Swale, right into his glove. 4 seconds left on the penalty to Sofferer. 10 minutes, 44 seconds left in the contest.
Our game tonight also brought to you by the Mulch Store. Locations all over the metro area. Great place to make your springtime plans for landscaping. Best compost you'll find in the entire Midwest. Get their locations at mulchstoremn.com.
Shot deflected just wide. Good opportunity that time. Snuggerud again at the center of it. Shot nice. Snipe that time. Harry Pager tallies the 6th goal of the afternoon for Eden Prairie, and he ripped a shot. Looked like over the shoulder of Daniel Swale. And that makes it 6-1. Didn't see if there will be an assist, but that is Harry Pager, the senior forward, with the 6th goal for the Eagles.
Well, Eden Prairie wasn't on the power play on that sequence, but sure felt like it did with the way they were moving the puck. And Harry Pager walking right out in front, firing that on net, finding a hole and getting the goal for Eden Prairie.
And they'll credit Snuggerud with an assist. So that's Luke's second assist of the afternoon. 2-point afternoon for the senior defenseman. Last season he tallied 33 assists, which led the Eagles.
Also last season had points in 12 of his last 14 games. Also has points in all 3 games this season, so do the math. 15 of his last 17 games, he's had at least 1 point.
And here he is with the puck, walking across the blue line. Looking, tries to sidestep Sullivan for the Cougars, but nice job by Nolan taking the puck away. Sullivan sends it around to Byers. Byers now. Clay Geary, sophomore forward, dumps it in as the Cougars change. Spinner brings it in, working his way in. Shot, save made, rebound, open in front of the net. Controlled by Lakeville South, back the other way, 2-on-2. Ulrich, he sends a shot wide. And Sweeney with him. Spinner back in, it's 3-on-1. Spinner, cross ice. Puck hopped on him, and the Eagles not able to do anything with the 3-on-1 break. Spinner, a little too much puck possession. He has it taken away. Sweeney into his offensive zone, leaves it for the Lakeville forward, who was a little bit tied up with Eden Prairie. Puck sent back in. Gers tips it around. 8:35 to go in the contest. 6-1 Eagles. Shot deflected. That was Sweeney trying the short angle shot. It was tipped and up into the net. And we'll have a face-off in the Eagles zone.
Again, thank you for tuning in here to PSBMN.com. We'll, of course, have Eden Prairie's next game against Bloomington Jefferson on Tuesday. That will definitely be Eden Prairie's toughest challenge of the season. Adam, I know you'll be out there at that game. Looking forward to that one. Also will be on BEC TV. If you're a Lakeville South fan, believe we'll have another one of their games coming up in a few weeks as they'll take on Bloomington Kennedy. I think 2 Saturdays from now we'll also have that game for you right here on PSB Media.
Yeah, depending on the Jags outcome, I believe they play this afternoon.
Minnetonka, which will be a stiff challenge.
So a couple tough games in a row for the Jags, but they could also be undefeated. They're 3-0 right now. They could be 4-0 heading into Tuesday night's game with Eden Prairie. Art Singer with the puck for Eden Prairie. Taken away. And South still struggling to get out of their own end. Now they break ahead and dump as Lembeck chases, delivers a nice check on Shoe. Taken away. Short side shot, save made that time on Radinsky. A lot of underclassmen on this Lakeville South roster. Actually only 4 or 5 seniors, but a host of juniors and sophomores. So a young team playing a pretty veteran squad in Eden Prairie.
A veteran to say the least. 17 seniors are on Eden Prairie's boys hockey team, and that's a highly unusual number of seniors to see on any hockey team in Minnesota. Usually a lot of teams try to only have 10 or 11 seniors to build for the future, but Coach Lee Smith has just a number of really talented older players and a lot of high expectations when you have a veteran team like this. And going back to your point, when you have a young team like Lakeville South taking on an older team like Eden Prairie, and that's a tough test for Lakeville South, but a learning chance for them as almost certainly be a big player, if not next year, the year after, with a number of youngsters on their squad.
Cougars only a couple years removed from a third place showing in the Class 2A state tournament back in 2012. So definitely have a good tradition. Pipe banged off of that time, and look who it was, Snuggerud. Rang the pipe but didn't convert.
Well, and with Lakeville South as well, you'll always have a chance to go to state when you're talking about playing in Section 1. Of course, Lakeville can't control what section they're assigned, but usually in 1 you find a lot of teams from southern Minnesota that kind of struggle to compete with teams from the metro area.
It sounds like how it used to be before there was Class 6A in football. It was much the same story when you had Rochester Schools, Owatonna playing teams like Lakeville North, Lakeville South, Farmington. There's a shot wide by Swaney. And it's obviously much the same with only 2 classes in boys hockey. Nice pass up ahead. Here comes Parrish. Ridden hard.
That's a football form type tackle and a clean hit as well. No penalty being assessed. I think that was a good call by the referee not to assess anything.
Look down. Parrish is not happy. He thought it should have been a penalty.
I think he just got under him. I don't know if there's anything that would warrant a penalty on that one.
That was Daly delivering the check for the Cougars. Our best hit of the night by far. Daly is the man with the puck. Sends it on net, steered into the corner by Gertis. Aguilar banks it off the boards ahead to Spinner. 3-on-3. He takes a shot up wide. All the way around to the point. Control. Spinner somehow comes out with the puck again. Hard shot saved by Swale. So it seems like every time there's a loose puck, it's either Spinner or Snuggerud somehow coming up with the possession for the Eagles.
Old Wayne Gretzky saying it's not going where the puck is, it's going where it's going to be. And man, it seems like they've been everywhere so far tonight.
I'm interested to see. Obviously, we don't have the broken out statistics, but I feel like puck possession from those 2 guys, along with shots on the goal, they have to have at least double digits between the 2.
Or even shots attempted, that would probably be even more lopsided.
Another big hit on the near boards by Lakeville South. Puck still loose. Swale covers up. There's a little bit sloppy play as a couple new Eagles are on the ice. Cole Lawrence, a sophomore, and Tyler Safgren, junior, both getting into the game. 6-1 our score, 4 minutes, 20 seconds to play from Lakeville. If you're just joining us, Eden Prairie jumped out to a 3-0 lead in the first 5 minutes of the first period, and since then it's been a much better game, but they've still outscored the host Cougars by a score of 3-1, which gives us the 6-1 lead as the clock ticks away here in the third period. Jack Sullivan Around to Graham. Shoe. And firing it into the corner that time was Jack Sullivan. Lembeck up ahead to Daly. This third period has been dominated in terms of possession by Eden Prairie. I think shots on net were, I want to say 33 to 16, 33 to 15, and right now it's like 13 to 2 or thereabouts in the third period.
Yeah, Eden Prairie, I know, had 33 shots after the second, so yeah, you do the math, 13 shots. Yeah, Lakeville, they were only at 16, if I'm not mistaken, 16 or 15, so heavy shot advantage for Eden Prairie, and part of that I think is going to be the depth of Eden Prairie starting to wear down a younger Lakeville South team. Eden Prairie more than capable of going 3 lines deep. In fact, I think they could actually go 4 lines deep with some of the other players that can come up from the JV squad and do a nice job for them.
Shot on net again by Snuggerud. So next game, as you said, Brett, earlier, Tuesday evening in Eden Prairie, the Eagles will host Bloomington Jefferson. Another South Suburban Lake matchup.
Yes, you call it a border battle as well with Western Bloomington versus Eden Prairie. I know back when they were both in the Lake Conference, that was always a big game.
Under 3 to play, South rushing into the zone. That's Hazlett. Both teams getting their fourth line players out there. After it is Clays. Clays star of the game thus far, 2 goals already. Big hit delivered. They're going to call a penalty on number 15 of the Eagles, Charlie Lawrence. They have to assume a charge.
No, let's see. I didn't see anything too vicious. Let's take a look. I think you might be right about a charge.
Yep.
I guess he did get kind of a running start, so that'll be the call. You're absolutely right.
2 minutes for charging, another minor penalty. And that should take us down to almost the rest of the game for Lakeville South. So I guess that's the one thing that Coach Smith might be a little disappointed in. A lot of penalties once again tonight for the Eagles.
Well, especially to the second half of the game, if I remember right. First period, first half, the second period, they didn't have any, but yeah, they have started to pile up here in the second half.
4 penalties in the last half of the contest. And here comes a 2-on-none break. It's Spinner. Shot save made by Swale, Spinner, and Schmidt. And back the other way comes Lakeville South, and it's a goal. Senior Drew Byers looked like he went one-on-one, and a nice backhand and clipped it, I think, underneath through the 5-hole of Jake Gertis.
Well, we'll take a look at the 2-on-0 first up, seeing the goaltender make a good save. Then Lakeville South going the other way. Look at the pass from the defenseman for Lakeville South, getting that up ahead, and that sets up the goal. That was almost a 3-line pass.
So, Byers records his goal. If he scored this season. Last season he netted 7 goals, had 6 assists. He's also captain for the Cougars. So Drew on the board, and it makes it a 6-2 game. I didn't catch who had the assists.
Yeah, I wasn't able to see it on the replay either. Who delivered that long pass which crossed 3 lines practically. That's what really set up that goal.
Lakeville South with control, clangs a pipe. That time I think it was Swaney off the left pipe. Eden Prairie ices it. Minute 15 to go in the game. Face-off upcoming in the Eden Prairie zone. So Eden Prairie will move to 3-0 in the season. Lakeville South fall to 1-3. The Eagles, their offense has really been the story. 6 goals in the opener, 5 goals against Rosemount, now 6 more goals tonight. So it'll be a challenge for Jefferson on Tuesday to keep this high-powered offense of the Eagles under wraps.
And of course, Jefferson, I know, has always had a strong power play unit, and that'll be important for Eden Prairie to stay out of the penalty box in that game. just like it was tonight. Lakeville South looked very good on special teams. Jefferson will do the same.
Snugger walks all the way in. Another nice save by Swale. You see why Snugger is a Division I recruit. He's fluid with the puck and knows when to come in and take it all the way from the point on the attack, but also knows when to pull it out and set up the sets for the Eagles. So very nice looking player.
He and Spinner actually will be attending the same college too, so those guys, they're playing high school together, will get to play college hockey together as well. They'll both be playing for Coach Dean Blaze at Nebraska Omaha.
Mavericks, of course, in the WCHA. Now we're going to have a whistle.
A little chippy action here at the end of the game. Looks like the Eden Prairie player who was all right after he got checked into his own bench.
It was Charlie Lawrence who just served the penalty. He got upended by Matt Lembeck. 23.3 to go before this one is in the books. Eagles win the face-off. Ridland after it. Cougars keep it in. Under 10 to play. Shot is wide by Lembeck. Eagles control 2 seconds, and that is your game. Eden Prairie 6, Lakeville South 2. We'll be back in 30 seconds with the Sun Current postgame show. You're watching boys hockey on PSB MN.
The Sun Current is proud to be your community news leader for over 50 years. Each week you can read their in-depth coverage on local government, school district news, high school sports matchups, community events, and newsmakers. The Sun Current's website is now mobile user-friendly and provides breaking local news coverage daily. Check it out at current.mnsun.com.
Welcome back to Hasse Arena, Lakeville, Minnesota. Eden Prairie downs the host Cougars 6-2, your final score. And this is the Sun Current postgame show. We'll go over the scores and highlights from this one. It was all Eden Prairie early. They scored 3 times in the first 4 minutes of the contest. It was Artsinger, Clays, and Graham netting the 3 goals in the first period. That's the way the first period ended. 3-0 Eagles after the first 17 minutes. Second period started off Eagles getting on the board first again. It was Colton Smith scoring the 4th goal of the contest. Just 2:57 into the second period. That made it 4-0 Eagles. Lakeville South got on the board via the power play. Nick Ulrich netted his 3rd goal of the season. Assist on that one coming from Pat Lauderdale and Nick Swaney. Later in that second period, Jack Clays scored his 2nd goal of the afternoon at the 15:52 mark. Assists Riley Artsinger and Michael Parrish. Heading to the 3rd period, it was 5-1 Eagles. Game in hand. They added one more for good measure. At the 6:18 mark, it was Harry Pager scoring on an assist from Luke Snuggerud. Snuggerud with a 2-point afternoon, both assists. And that was the final Eden Prairie score. And then late in the game, Drew Byers, senior captain for the Cougars, scored his first goal of the season. And that is how we arrive at the 6-2 final between Eden Prairie and Lakeville South. So, I guess we would name a star of the game. It's pretty obvious. Jack Clay scoring 2 goals. That whole line really did a heck of a job. But the 3rd line, Pager also scoring. But Clay's 2 goals. Obviously, Snuggerud, more of what we've seen from him all season, all career really. Puck control, a couple assists, setting up plays. But Jack Clay's 2 goals, and first 2 goals of the season, I believe you said. So good to see him get on the board for the Eagles.
Yeah, a number of guys who could give star of the game, too, for Eden Prairie. Riley Artsinger continues his red-hot start as well. That's a guy who didn't even start last season on the varsity team. He was on JV most of the year, and he's come up and scored a number of goals for Eden Prairie and gotten on the score sheet. Jack Clay is a great baseball player for a number of years, coming back to the hockey program with a couple of goals. And, of course, as you said, the usual guys, Steven Spinner and Luke Snuggerud, delivering as well for EP.
So I didn't catch the final shots on goal, but I know Eden Prairie had up over 46, so they'll increase their average. They had 92 in the first two games, at least 46 in this one. So no shortage of nets or shots on net, and actually probably some more effective shots than they'd seen against Rosemount. As you said, they concentrated on really peppering the goaltender Swale this afternoon, and they came away with 6. That lit the lamp, and they'll get out of here with a victory before their game on Tuesday with Bloomington Jefferson. So, once again, your final score from Lakeville. It's Eden Prairie moving to 3-0 with a 6-2 victory over Lakeville South. For Brett Johnson, this is Adam Rosso signing off. You were watching boys hockey on PSB.
Thanks for tuning in to live local play-by-play coverage of the Eagles High School sports. Tonight's broadcast was brought to you by Umbria Gourmet Pizzeria, The Mulch Store, Alpha Investment Advisors, Performance Therapy Innovations, Brandy Warmbier State Farm Insurance Office, and Healthy Training. Keep it tuned to PSBMN.com for more broadcasts of Eagles High School sports.